recording.
Let's get the time.
Oh, it is 5:24.
Hey. Hello, I'm Casey Kraft.
I'm Aubrey.
All right, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
This is my partner.
Hi, I'm Kara Dickens' bedroom.
Nice to meet you.
Aubrey, you may call me Kara if you like.
Kara? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, how'd you do finding our office?
It was tough. I mean, you guys have a lot of construction going on outside,
Oh,
but I was able to run into a guy named Roberto. He kind of pointed me in this direction.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Is this your first time coming into the office?
It is actually.
Okay. And how'd you hear about our firm?
It was this radio advertisement talking about, you doing the type of thing, hopefully, that you can help me with my situation.
Okay.
Oh, good. Good to know that our advertisements are effective.
Yeah.
So I just wanted you to know that today is there's no fee for today. It's just a consultation, so we can see what's going on, and you can see how we are and determine if you want to hire us and things like that. And so we have allotted about 30 minutes for your consultation today, just to hear your story and to find out what you would like our help with. And so if it runs over like 30 minutes, that would be okay, or we can schedule another one if it's necessary.
Okay.
But we're pretty much just here today just to hear what your story is and things like that. And so.
Okay. First, we're just going to go over a few office policies, and then we want to hear everything that's going on, your situation, why you came in today. Then we'll probably ask a few follow-up questions and look at any law that might be applicable to your situation. And then we'll just wrap things up for today, okay?
Okay. Just to make sure, you said there's no charge for today.
For today.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, there's no fee associated with today. If we all agree that we'll be representing you,
Mm-hmm.
then later on, after we hear everything that's going on, we'll talk about our fee agreement, okay?
Okay.
First of all, everything that we say in this office is confidential. So feel free to tell us everything that's going on. Please don't hold anything back. That also applies to anything that our secretary's here, or because I know you talked with our secretary before you came in today, or anybody else in the office. Okay, here's our confidentiality agreement.
Okay.
Feel free to look it over. It's just basically saying everything that I just said, but you're welcome to look it over at any time.
Okay.
We're also going to be taking some notes today. Feel free to take notes as well. Don't feel any obligation to, though. It's just for us to make sure that we fully understand everything that's going on, and later on we can go back and look at the notes if we have any questions.
Yeah, I think that'd be good because I've got kind of a timeline of events, and so maybe and I'm going to try and tell them in the best order I can, so that it makes sense.
Okay. Well, before we start, before we hear your story, maybe you would like to hear a little bit about us. Our firm was started about 10 years ago, and we actually worked together before this and decided to go out on our own. We practice family law and business law, bankruptcy, things like that, and also constitutional law. And so that's what it's pretty much about us. Now we'd like to hear a little bit about you. So can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, hopefully I'm in the right place. Going through all the laws, I'm trying to figure out how mine even fits in that. But if not, maybe you guys can point me in the right direction.
Right.
But I about 4 years ago, I met my now wife, and we had just graduated with our masters. We had been dating forever, and we had started saying that we were thinking about taking it to the next level. One of the things that I was extremely adamant about is that I did not want any children. I did not want kids, and she knew about this the entire time. And when we started talking about after getting our degrees and moving on and starting like our own life, I just wanted to make sure before we did that we were on the same level as far as, I don't want kids, I need to make sure you don't want kids, I need to make sure that this isn't something that you're wishy-washy about. And she said no. And I said, well, just to make sure we do the business side of this, would you be okay just doing like a written contract, something she and I and there was a witness and the pastor, we all witnessed this and wrote it down, that there would be no kids. We knew we did not want children. And in the event that she became pregnant, that the pregnancy would be terminated immediately, no questions asked. And we signed it and everything. And then so, I mean, this was important to even, before even getting married. I mean, if she didn't agree to this, I didn't want to go through with this. I just knew I don't want kids. So we did it. We signed that. We went. We got married. But as a backup plan, just to kind of be in control of my own destiny, I went and I got a vasectomy. Now, when I went to do the vasectomy, the doctor there told me that there's two versions. He said, one, there's a version where it's temporary and it can be reversed whenever you want to if you change your mind. And two is permanent. So it's like a 99.99999. He said, in other words, this should never happen. And I'm like, well, that's what I want. I want the permanent, the 99, whatever. Matter of fact, I want the 1,010. And so we went ahead, we did the procedure. I did it about a year ago. And everything's been good. And then right around 3 weeks to a month ago, my wife is now pregnant. And she has assured me that this is not due to infidelity, that this is just kind of a freak of nature. And we spoke about what would happen, and now she has changed her mind and she doesn't want to do this. Like, she wants this child. And I want her to have an abortion. And I'm thinking, because we created this contract and pretty much the marriage was contingent on us moving forward with this agreement, and now she's changed her mind. I want to know, what can I do to, one, her to fulfill that part of the contract and her to do this, what she said she would do. And then if I can't, I don't want to be responsible for this part of the relationship I didn't agree to. And then on top of that, can the doctor be held responsible if this does turn out to be my child? And I guess that's why I'm here.
Okay, I'm just gonna make sure that everything we heard was accurate, and just gonna go through a few of the notes that we wrote down, and then we're gonna go back and ask a few questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you and your wife decided that before you were getting married that you didn't want to have any children, so you made a premarital contract stating that, and that if in event that she would become pregnant, that you all would terminate the pregnancy. And about a month ago, your wife became pregnant after a year of you having a vasectomy. Okay. Now she wants to keep the child. So could you tell us a little bit more about the contract that you and your wife signed before you were married?
Yeah, the contract, it was something that she and we created together, and with the pastor. We didn't get an attorney. Okay. We didn't have an attorney draw the contract up. It was something we did together, and I had pulled it up online, and we had 3 witnesses. It was I believe it was like her first cousin, and then it was my brother and my dad, and then the pastor, he witnessed it. He didn't sign anything, but he's also the one that married us, and he knew that I did not want children, and he knew from that conversation and the wedding that she didn't want kids. So I don't know if the more witnesses you have, the better it makes my case, or if it even matters.
Well, kind of to answer that question before we go on, like, it is good to have witnesses involved, especially with the pastor being a third party, since you did mention that the 3 witnesses you had were related. But the good thing about that is you did have both sides family members, so that could help you too. Just because a lawyer is not involved doesn't invalidate a contract.
Good, because that was one of my big things. Yeah. I'm like, was this something we should have got an attorney for? But I was,
just because an attorney is not involved doesn't mean that it's not a valid contract. There are some things that we would want to look at. If that contract is available, we definitely would want to.
I didn't bring it in, but I do have it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, to talk, okay, so your goals, just make sure that we have this right. You really just want to know whether she has to stick to the contract or what kind of, I guess that was your.
My number one thing is I think she should have this abortion. I mean, we had a great life. I mean, she's amazing. She's my number one. And now this is coming in the way. And if this was not there, I think everything would go back to being like it was before. So I want her to have the abortion. That's what I want,
Okay.
is for her to do that.
And in the event that she refuses to have the abortion, I
Which
mean,
is what she's
would
doing.
Right. I mean, like what would be your next step in the event that she would decide not to have it?
Then I think that if the entire contract and the contract on this, and I'm under the assumption that a marriage is a contract, that all that should be void. And I should also not be responsible for this child, because I didn't want this child, and I think I took all the necessary steps to not be responsible.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my next thing. If she cannot be forced to have this abortion, then I need to be removed completely from this situation so that I'm not responsible for this child.
A big question that we like to ask, our potential clients, is what you think that the other side or the other party would say. So in this case, what your wife would say.
As far as what do you mean?
As far as signing the contract and now wanting to keep the child.
She would probably say that, you know what, like they always say, and I don't mean to be like this, but they say sometimes couples get together and they change their mind, which is why I wanted the contract, which is why I did the vasectomy. They get together, they form this bond, and it's like we're missing something, and then that's where the whole children conversation comes up, which is what I wanted to avoid.
So,
And I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you.
It's okay.
I just want to make sure that you think that her side would be that she just changed her mind and then wanted the child. So do you feel like she purposely got pregnant, or that it was, purely
It's one of two things. It's number one, it's not mine, and then for the slim chance that it is, I just do not want this. I don't want this. So.
Has she, or have you asked her to submit to a paternity test to make sure that it is yours?
Well, we've talked about that, and she says that kind of destroys the trust between us, and it's like why are we even in a relationship if we can't trust one another? But me on the other side, where we've done all these things for this not to happen, and then all of a sudden this freak of nature happens, why not, put my mind at ease by, that one thing, thinking that you now gone out and cheated on me. I don't know, it's just crazy right now.
Right. Okay, well, to talk about the law a little bit, unfortunately, your contract, I feel, is going to be something that's going to be in contention, because
What does that mean?
well, I mean, like, whether it's actually valid.
Okay.
Because the fact that abortion is like a woman's right, like I'm sure you've heard of like Roe v. Wade and things like that.
Vaguely.
I mean, but you've heard the concept. I'm saying, like, okay, a woman like has a right to an abortion, and so whether it's something we'd have to dig into deeper, but whether she can contract that right away is something that I'm not sure about.
Okay.
I don't know if you can actually enter into a valid contract where you're giving away that right, because there are many rights that we can't contract to give away. And like, it's not that I'm discouraging you, and I'm not saying it's not valid. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm just saying that that's something that we would have to look at.
I think that to kind of also go on what Casey is saying, the validity of your contract wouldn't necessarily be for, then your wife has to have an abortion. I think it would be more be in your defense to force the paternity test, or also to dissolve the marriage if it comes to that point. So, like Casey was saying, and like I said earlier about the validity of the contract, it's not necessarily like that now she has to have the abortion, even though you know put that in writing and had witnesses, which is great in theory, but it would be similar to giving up, you know, another fundamental right that we have as Americans.
So, okay. So if she knew, like, what if she knew this was an invalid? Like, what if she did this entire facade just to set me up, knowing that this contract would not hold water? I mean, what, do I have any options there?
I mean, you could, yeah, you could sue her, I guess. You could sue her for, like unconscionability and things like that. You could sue her for, like, entering into a contract she knew was invalid, even if you didn't know maybe at the time that it was invalid. So, you know, it could be, but they might consider that mistake of contract, you know, because, I mean, I don't think she's gonna come out and say,
Right.
well, I lied, you know, so, I mean, that's something that you could sue her over. However, and also something to think about, it may be an easier way to divorce. I know you're not really like 100% wed to that, I know, but that would be something because you weren't aware of all the facts at the time when you married her, and so that would make your intent to marry less, and so it may be like cause for an annulment.
But there would have been no marriage. There would, as a matter of fact, it would have ended that day.
Yes.
So,
but I mean, that's something else that we'd have to make sure all the bottom lines, but I'm fairly sure that in a situation like that, if it was that much of a lie, then it could be cause for annulment.
so I cannot force her to get an abortion? Is that?
As far as I know, and from, I mean, of course, we have to look into it more, but as far as I'm aware, no, there's not a way that you could force her to have an abortion. Because it's a right of hers to keep, and she can't contract to give that away. So that's, I mean, but like I said, we'll have to look into it just to make sure. So that's something that you'll want to keep in the back of your mind. Like, that's why we need to see your contract, because
Right.
that's something else that we'll have to look at the law and look at your contract, and because there could be a situation to where that works. Although I'm fairly sure you can't contract to that.
Yeah, because I always see, you know, people changing the law and stuff.
Right.
So maybe this could be one of those things where we do that if they say you can't, because it just doesn't make sense, because this just messes up everything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So what about, you know, what about the doctor? Can anything be done about him? Is that beyond, you know? I mean, I don't know.
We could definitely look into, you're talking about your vasectomy procedure?
Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't know if that was the type of stuff you guys do as well. If you would pick this apart and you're like, I can do this part and not this. I don't know, you know.
Some of what we could do is do a little bit of research and find out about the procedure you had and how effective it actually is. If we did go the route of forcing a paternity test, then that would help our case a little bit more, because if it is, you know, your child, then we would have a route to go to see how effective the procedure was and why this happened. Obviously, I do know that there are we've dealt with some procedures in the past that the doctor said, okay, you have this amount of time to where it won't be completely effective. But since it was a year later, normally that time period would have passed.
Yeah.
So I'm sure maybe you got some paperwork or anything when you went to them and they said like it was a 3-week, 4-week period.
Yeah, he said
where
it was like you have to do these checkups, and it was like a
Okay.
month, 3 months, and then at 6 months it's 100% because they do these tests.
Right.
And then so I did the 6-month checkup, and he's like 100%, we are good.
So yeah, so if we force a paternity test and it turns out that it is your child, then we would maybe have some leverage with filing a claim against the doctor, and maybe if the procedure he gave you was the wrong procedure, or if, because you mentioned that there were 2 different procedures, so
Yeah.
if it was the temporary versus the permanent, or if it was, you know, any sort of malpractice on his part, we definitely, you know, or if he misrepresented it to you wrongly through the paperwork he gave you saying that it's 99.999% effective, and it really turns out that the research shows it's, you know, even though it says it's permanent, it's, you know, 96% effective, which is a big difference than 99.999.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
You know, that is definitely something that we could look into further.
Okay, and the, I think a problem you're gonna run into with the paternity test, like, is she's so newly pregnant that, I mean, you said, like, what, that she's like a month ago that she's pregnant? I mean,
It's
how long
just
has she
over 3
been?
weeks. It's
Okay.
and I don't know the whole procedure as far as,
Right.
I know when it comes to abortions, it's got to be done within a certain amount of time, and then
Right.
after you're
Right.
you're stuck.
Yeah,
And I'm trying to avoid the whole
right.
stuck, and that's why I'm like here now, and I'm like,
Yes.
we need to do something now. So, and you're saying I can't force her, but I'm like, we can force her. We can do this now. So I'm not
So,
in that situation.
Unless we find out that there is a way for her to have to stick to the contract. The issue is the paternity, like, you're kind of wed to the child because you're married to her. And the paternity test cannot be taken until later on in the pregnancy. So that's something else that would be to look into. I mean, I don't have a medical degree, but I know that it has to be several months into the pregnancy before they can even do the safest paternity test. A lot of women won't even allow a paternity test until after the baby is born, because there's like a slight risk, and so that's something else that is going to come into play and put your timeline longer and longer, because the paternity test will have to be done before you can even say anything to the doctor, and then there's the malpractice, and so it's just like, you know, it's just going to be a timeline. So that's something else that you have to consider. I mean, this could be a long, drawn-out process.
Okay, what about this? I mean, you just made me think of something.
Sure.
What if she has the baby? I can't make her have an abortion. Can I make her give it up for adoption?
I don't know. That's a good question. That's something else we'd have to look into. I don't think I've ever seen a case where that occurred. Not in my experience. Have you ever?
No, you wouldn't be able to force an adoption unless, you know, she would have to agree to that,
Yeah.
and you would both have to sign off on that.
Back to that whole right thing.
Yeah, you would have to.
Yeah.
You would definitely have to agree to that.
I think
Unless the only other option would be if she was unfit
Yeah.
to be a parent, which
She's not.
we would definitely have to have the courts
She
involved,
doesn't
and
have
that's.
capacity.
I feel like that, you know, you've kind of leaned toward not wanting to dissolve the marriage, and that would definitely put a huge burden on your marriage, trying to prove that she's an unfit mother. So, I mean, we definitely wouldn't recommend that option.
Okay.
So maybe, since there is a lot of research that we would have to do for this case, but obviously timeline is very important.
Very.
We're gonna talk about just a few alternatives and then get into our next steps and our client fees, okay?
Okay.
So we talked about, you know, forcing a paternity test. We will have to do some research to see the timeline of when it's safe for your wife to go ahead with that.
Okay.
And look at your contract to see how that plays in, and if we can force a paternity test based on that contract that you have with her.
Okay.
So basically, other than that, and obviously we mentioned the dissolving the marriage, which through annulment or divorce, and you're obviously not, you know, leaning towards that option, we're going to try to do the paternity tests first. So basically what we need from you is the contract,
Okay.
and the witnesses, they signed it with any contact information given on the actual document.
They have their name, and then they dated it.
Okay.
but I'm still in contact with these
Okay.
people. I can bring them in, and I can bring her.
Right.
Can I bring her in?
Oh, yes, of course
So
you
I can bring her in.
I didn't
and
know
then-
if you wanted
Wanted
this
that.
to be.
Oh, she knows I'm here. She
Okay,
knows I'm.
okay.
She knows I'm doing this.
Okay, well, yes,
So-
and that is a great idea to have her come in, and before that, if we could look at the paperwork before she comes in, so we have an idea of where we
Okay.
stand. That would be our next steps, and we would wanna do that as soon as possible.
Yeah,
Um,
probably put it together tomorrow.
okay, if you wanna look over our fee agreement,
Okay.
it basically, the first page, you would need to initial the first page and sign and date the bottom of the second page, but it just lays out our fee agreement, which is a $1,500 retainer fee, $150 hourly rate that's deducted from the retainer fee. We send monthly billing statements outlining our time that we spend on your case and notifying you if we are getting close to that $1,500 and what our next steps are for the billing process as far as the $150 hourly rate above the retainer fee. Okay?
Well, just so you're saying like within a month, like how long do you think this could take? Like how much money I guess am I looking at the end of the day? Would you?
Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to quote something like that about how much money it would take. If we get to a point that we realize our only option is paternity test, our only option is dissolving the marriage, and maybe the malpractice suit, we would kind of figure out our options from there and definitely work with you on the fee agreement. And this is more just our initial statement so that we can start the research going,
Okay.
look into all the things that we need to do because especially if we end up needing to depose your wife or any of the witnesses of the contract, which would be just like asking them questions under oath so that we get an accurate statement of what's going on. That all costs money. So
Okay.
that's why we need the retainer fee up front.
Okay.
So if you can basically just get in contact with our secretary
Okay.
about making another appointment with your wife, and then also send in the documents that you have.
Well, I can bring them up tomorrow.
Okay, sure. Could you also bring the paperwork from the vasectomy
Mm-hmm.
as well?
Yeah.
Any medical records that you have from that and any medical records of your wife's pregnancy. She's gone to the doctor.
Yeah.
Okay, so any records from the doctor from her pregnancy and then also your contract.
Okay.
So I can send a list to my secretary and he can send you a reminder
Okay.
just to make sure you have the list. 'Cause I know
Yeah,
there's
like-
like a couple different things.
To make sure I bring everything.
Yeah.
Because it's like everything is like it needs to happen now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and
Obviously, time is very important.
Yeah.
and also to go with your fee agreement, it would be important to sign a HIPAA release so that we can obtain your medical records in the event that you want us to look into her pregnancy and anything like that. Like we would need her to sign a HIPAA release too.
So she would have to
we could
sign it
see
for her
everything,
and then.
you would have to
And I
sign
guess
it for your
me with it
vasectomy.
you need one
Right.
from me.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
But what if she doesn't sign that? Then what do I do?
Then, that's gonna come into
We
another
force her?
of having to, well, you can't
Can't still be
force
able
her to
to
do it.
give his records that he has
For
from
the
the
vasectomy?
doctor, no, from the pregnancy.
Well, if he
If he
has
has,
any,
yeah.
but most doctors keep their records and they don't she might have a picture or some test, but I don't know that she's gonna have a whole lot of medical records. Does she have,
Can I
Have you
just
seen
bring them in
them?
if they're just laying around?
if there's anything, you can bring them in, yes.
Okay. All right.
If you have access
Yes.
to them, yeah.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
what we want.
Mhm.
Do you have any maybe last minute thoughts about the contract or anything else that we may need to know about the situation?
The only thing is, I'll just set up an appointment with her outside because I'll be here tomorrow
Okay,
with everything that you need. We're going ahead and we'll get this started, and
yeah,
I mean that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay.
all right.
Well, here's our card.
Okay.
Please feel free to contact us. I know you said you'll be in tomorrow, but if you
Mhm.
think of anything tonight or early in the morning tomorrow, please feel free to contact Casey or myself. And if we're not in, we'll be sure to get back to you right away before tomorrow.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
for
so
coming
much.
in. See you
All right.
again.
All right. Roberta.